Good morning, honorable judges and everyone present today. I am Salsa and I stand here as the first speaker of opposition team of today's motion. This House will criminalize individuals and organizations who do not recycle. But before we move further, let me first clarify our today's motion. Crime is an action that violates state's legal norms, causing danger or loss with menstruation. However, not recycling doesn't really fit into this category. Non-recycling is often not a matter of intentional wrongdoing, but a result of structural constraints such as lack of infrastructure, inequal education, and limited access. I am sure that the pro's arguments is really flawed and unrealistic. First, pro said that recycling is cheap and profitable. I strongly believe that they don't even know what they're saying, or they don't know that recycling requires advanced sorting machines, transportation system, and processing facilities. Also, in many regions, especially in those with limited infrastructure, recycling is not cost efficient at all. Without strong financial support, it becomes a burden than a benefit. For those reasons, I am certainly sure that the pro's arguments are based on their unproven assumption and fails to give the real solution that people who don't recycling should be criminalized. But in reality, there are some reasons why this is very unrealistic and unfair. Here's why. First, the lack of equal infrastructure and facility. You cannot criminalize individuals and organizations who don't recycle. We all know that recycling is a thing that needs tools to be recycled. On a recycle, we need first place to collect and sort the waste. Second, place to clean the waste. And three, a tool to recycle the waste itself. For example, when we're about to recycling a paper waste, we need a blender. When we're about to recycling a compost, we need a shredder. And when we want to recycling metal, we need a press machine. And I am sure that only a big city that have these things, people who live in a remote area don't have it. This makes recycling is a privilege, not a choice. And criminalize someone for not recycling is assuming that every people have equal access to proper recycling facilities. But in fact, we are not. We all live in different sites in Indonesia. When the government enforces criminal penalties towards not recycling without first ensuring that every people and every area has the same access, it means that they are forcing people to give extra effort, extra money, and extra time just to complete. For example, for someone in a rural or remote area where there are no separate bins for recycling and other recycling tools, and the only available option is general bin that gets collected and mixed together in the end, it is not an option. Even if the person doesn't want to mix their waste, they still cannot do it. They have no choice because of the system that cannot support it. They will have to force their extra time and effort traveling far away just to find a recycling facilities, which is unrealistic for people with tight schedule like students, workers, etc. And when they do not do that, they will get criminalized. As a result, the policy that should bring in goods instead of really make goods, they will just actually unfairly punish people who are already disadvantaged for live in rural area. Someone in a big city with proper facilities can easily do that, while people in remote areas still suffering and could easily face fines or penalties when they don't give extra effort for traveling far away just to find proper facilities for recycling just because where they live. This creates inequality and can even lead to frustration and depression of resistance, reducing public trust in the policy. Over that, instead of criminalizing people who do not recycling, government should ensure the equal access first, so people could easily do a proper recycling. For example, like in a modern country like in Japan, where recycling bins are readily available and waste is collected separately, people will naturally recycle more because it is easy and convenient. This shows that improving the infrastructure first is more vital than the punishment. Second, educational inequality. Criminalizing people for not recycling assumes that everyone has sufficient knowledge about why and how to recycle. In reality, there is significant educational inequality that make not everyone understand waste separation rules, environmental impacts, or proper recycling methods. People may want to comply, but simply they don't know how to. For example, some individuals may not understand the difference between recyclable and non-recyclable materials, or how to properly clean and sort the waste, and others may have never been exposed to environmental education at all. This leads to unfair punishment that penalize people for not being properly informed how to rightly recycling. 3. The low trust in governance system. I believe that criminalization should rely on a credible and impartial enforcement system. However, we live in a country that has a low public trust in enforcement. This didn't just happen out of nowhere. This happened because we can see that many officials with previous cases that involving serious crimes, they only receive a short sentence for unreasonable reasons, such as because they have a good behavior. This makes people's trust in law drop and making the enforcement weak. When the enforcement is weak, law tend to be selectively applied. Just like what I said, even in more serious cases, there are instances where individuals avoid punishment through bribery or connections. If such loopholes exist in major crimes, then I believe that it is even more likely to happen in minor crimes such as recycling violations. As a result, people may think that, yeah, I can just pay like them and this crime is done. This just will create a system where rules no longer have any value. They just exist as a display. In conclusion, criminalization, individuals or organizations for not recycling is fundamentally flawed because it clearly ignores three critical realities. First, the unequal infrastructure, the unequal education, and 3, the weak governance. By imposing criminal penalties without fixing these foundations, the policy misplaced responsibility onto individuals instead of addressing the root cause. As a result, this policy systemic injustice that leads to project low compliance, public distrust, and performative enforcement. In the long term, instead of building a genuine culture of sustainability, criminalize people who don't recycle will actually lead to a resistance, cynicism, and ineffective environmental. I believe that our argument is clearly stronger because it is exposed the real flaws that the proposition completely ignores. They assume that criminalize will automatically increase recycling while ignoring all the facts that not all people have proper access to recycling facility and education, also the fact of weak enforcement credibility in Indonesia. So, instead of criminalize people, the government should first ensure the equal access so people will naturally follow the rules easily because they don't have to travel far away just to recycle their bins. Second, they should prioritize education equality so people can understand the purpose and the method of recycling, so they're more likely to come voluntary for recycling. 3, they have to establish institutional and government credibility through transparent monitoring, consistent enforcement, and measurable outcomes, so public trust in system will increase and create a long-term appliance. For all these reasons, criminalization without seeing the reality won't solve the problem. So instead, government can prioritize or ensuring proper access for education and recycling facilities, establish the government system first before making the new law, that new law. For that reason, I really oppose that this house would criminalize people who don't recycle. Thank you.